Welcome to Soccer Talk, a podcast about soccer in Iowa, presented by Kick It Forward. Kick It Forward is a local nonprofit organization that strives to be a positive disruptor in the Iowa soccer community.
Among other things, we promote accessibility, diversity, and integration at a grassroots level.
Check out our website at www.kifsoccer.com or look us up on social media. The podcast is distributed on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, even Stitcher. Plus, you can watch it on YouTube, which you should be doing now. Make sure to rate and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
This episode is brought to you by Zener Keener PLC. Zener Keener is a full-service boutique litigation firm in Des Moines, Iowa. The firm specializes in trials and appeals in all manner of complex cases. Zener Keener is a longtime supporter of Kick It Forward, and it's working in the community and throughout the state of Iowa. Find them at zenerkeener.com.
We're your co-hosts, Ben Brackett and Blake Sievers, and we are here to talk soccer.
That's right, Ben. All soccer, all the time. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. Again, if you weren't listening, I'm Ben Brackett with my good buddy and co-host, Blake Sievers. Siebes, what's up?
We're going to see trying some different stuff today, so we'll see if our regular listeners can figure out how to speed past the intro or not, now that we got a new updated sponsor.
Yeah, well, we'll also see if our current producers are actually doing things correctly as well. But we are here, excited to be sitting in front of our banner in the studio to talk a little bit about the semifinal Substate game that our lovely listeners and supporters voted on.
Yeah, we kind of did a little bit different ordeal this week for the game of the week. We opened up the 3A Substate Central Iowa options and let our supporters and followers vote, and kind of runaway with over 100 votes came in at Dowling hosting Roosevelt.
Yeah, it sounds like, according to our sources, we had over 300 votes total, which is pretty cool. That many people took the time to even, actually vote. So thanks, everybody.
That's only like 10% of our podcast listeners, though, so there's a lot of people not voting.
That's true. Come on, guys, let's go. You guys have them speaking out both sides of my mouth here a little, aren't I? Anyway, so we did go check out Roosevelt-Dowling. Roosevelt had beaten Mason City 4-0 in the previous round. This Substate game then would be Dowling hosting a rematch of their game early in the season that ended in a 0-0 draw that Dowling ended up winning in a penalty shootout. Probably a fair result on the night, but about halfway through the season, they were happy to be without Joe Reed as well. Dowling was their number 12, who is quite the handful. It was my first time really getting to see him play.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. You were actually at that first Roosevelt-Dowling game, right? Covering it for our friends over at Iowa Catholic Radio.
Exactly. In the booth with Ben Teeling and subbing for our pal Tanner Krause.
So yeah, and we saw our first game of the week. We went to Norwalk and watched Dowling go there. So kind of a second time seeing Dowling for me, and then you as well. And obviously they came out victorious, but I don't know, Ben, what were your kind of thoughts on environment, atmosphere of the game?
Well, certainly different from one game to the next. And I mean, super fun just the other night because it was a beautiful night, and the mask mandate has been lifted here in Iowa. So whatever you think about it is sort of irrelevant. When you walk into a stadium, you see all these people and everybody seems comfortable and it's outside. It was great to see. Both teams were out in full force. They were being loud. I mean, I don't know. I loved it.
Yeah, and Dowling, we talked about it 2 years ago when we went to the Dowling Valley girls game there at Dowling Stadium. They've got a cool little stadium, some bleachers, but then they have a little grassy knoll there on the north side, I think, which is kind of interesting and cool for people to bring their blankets and sit and relax there.
Yeah, and also right on campus, which is not something you get from most high school stadiums these days, where you can just kind of walk across campus and you're there. So
it's like a driver for you, Ben.
Yeah, as the crow flies. So anyway, yeah, good game. We went out. We were able to see some Dowling alumni on the night, including Nick Sullivan, which was fun to see him out there. Who else did we see, Steve?
We saw Peter Katundu over there. We saw, obviously, the coaching staff.
Oh yeah, they were at full force.
They were. Ran into John Pearson, girls coach there at Dowling.
Oh, then we had the Menace GM, Charlie Bales, join us as well. So it was I think that's the other thing that's fun about these types of events is as it gets to this time of the season, people start to show up more and more to games, and it's just fun to catch up and see people. And regardless of the game that's going on, I had fun.
Yeah, and the weather obviously helps completely. Unbelievably gorgeous night under the lights there. So I don't know. Just the first thing I kind of took away was of the game, which we kind of were waiting to release the podcast, so we didn't do it right after to give Dowling's tactics away. But they moved Joe Reed from the first time we saw him into kind of like the target playing in the middle of the field, where last time we saw he was out wide. And I would say he was much more effective, got the ball a lot, created a lot of more chances, and ultimately scored the winner at 2-0 to put the game away.
Yeah, and we sort of walked in maybe 5 minutes after kickoff, 10 minutes after kickoff. And as we were getting settled and chatting with people, you could sort of see a play developing. There was a foul, lots of hubbub from the crowd, and a penalty that was called against the Roughriders. And Parker Stork, center back and captain for Dowling Maroon, stepped up to dispatch it. But talk a little bit about that, Steve. I didn't actually get a view of the controversial play.
Well, I think that was the story of the first half, right? 3 decisions that went against Roosevelt. So there's a pass back by Dowling, and the referee stopped the game, talked to the goalkeeper, which would have been interesting to know what conversation was had, and then gave Dowling a free kick, which again, that was the talk in the stands, what was going on there. And then, like you said, the penalty, which some neutrals and even pro Dowling folks said wasn't a penalty. And that obviously caused quite the stir. And then we can get into the third piece, and that was still controversial.
Yeah, a little later in the first half.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the penalty anymore, Ben?
Well, no, I mean, I guess I was just going to say, for whatever it's worth, Parker Stork did really well, because I think at that point in the game, with all the hubbub that was going on and the controversy that goes with it, you step up and it's a big game. There were probably some nerves. He's a senior, so it's in theory probably back of his mind. He's thinking this could be my last game. So I just, shout out to him for having the confidence to get up there and dispatch that.
Yeah, and he's a good player. He can do the mini pitch stuff, leader, but then technically good presence.
Yeah, and also funny though that the center back steps up to take, and it's not their goal scorer, Joe Reed.
That's an interesting selection by the boss there down there.
Well, I do know from the penalty shootout they had earlier in the year against Roosevelt that they do practice their penalties, which it sounds like the players are like whatever, but the coaching staff is adamant that they're comfortable in those situations. So that much is true.
Yes, then I guess the third little, again, controversial decision of the first half, Roosevelt was in on attacking on the left wing. One of the boys got fouled, and I think it was Rashidi was in on goal, kind of on the left side inside the penalty area. The referee called it back, stopped him from going to goal. So we thought, okay, that's interesting, but he's going to give him a penalty instead of letting the boy go 1-1 against the goalkeeper. And it came back, and the free kick ended up outside the penalty area. Which again, heavy Rough Rider presence in the crowd, which was cool. And they let the ref know. And again, it was definitely a head scratcher from our side.
We had a pretty good view of it as well. We moved around to that far side of the field. And I think anybody that was watching it would have just questioned it. And I'm sure that if the referee were able to go back and look at it again, he might do things differently, but that's the challenge of being a referee. So no worries on that end. Because I think for the rest of the game, he was able to keep things under control. And I mean, if I'm on the Roosevelt team, I might be a real pain in the butt going forward in that game. And it seemed like he kept things under control.
Yeah, I mean, so you go to the second half of Roosevelt, I don't know, maybe he was on the front foot a little bit. And we talk about penalties all the time, right? When you give one, is there another one? And Roosevelt actually they got to the final third and were kind of out of ideas and never gave the referee an opportunity to make it up and give them a penalty on their own.
Yeah, and I think that was, to me, the theme for the Roughriders is they were their midfield is really good. I really liked Hank O'Leary, Ishmael, I think was his name. I'm just going to look to make sure I get it correct. Then you got Colin James in there. Sorry. Shamali Idris was the number 8 in the midfield. Good player. And so I just thought the three of those guys together, they really built play well, and they connected passes, and they did well in getting the ball from their defenders and moving the ball up the field. But then it seemed like, and I don't know if it's like a lack of ideas or if it's just, like the lack of discipline. So, get the ball wide, get to the end line, get it back across, because they weren't manufacturing chances. Like a good team like that has the ball as much as they have it and is with as many good players, you'd expect them to just like manufacturing chances somehow, even if they're not very good, even just by pumping in the box, getting some corner kicks, getting some set pieces around the box, and making the goalkeeper make some saves. I don't know that Diego Leon had much to do with the Dowling goalkeeper.
I think I'd echo that. You're correct, exactly right. And you talk about the Dowling midfield, a couple freshmen in there and then you got a senior kind of with Ben Jurgens. So it was an interesting battle of the central midfield for both teams. And I think it's fair to say on the second half, at least Roosevelt had the upper hand. But like you said, just that last final pass, they weren't creative enough and couldn't piece it together.
Yeah, and it seemed like I might be just not knowing, but it seemed like maybe they valued possession a lot. But in a game like that, sometimes like you just have to start throwing the ball forward and trying to make something happen. See if Dowling makes some mistakes. Now, credit to Dowling, they are pretty organized in the back. So, like maybe that's part of it too. Maybe the chances that they were trying to build up were just, it's just they were having that much of a difficult time against the Dowling defense.
Yeah, then ultimately Roosevelt threw numbers forward there the last few minutes, and Dowling had a couple of decent counterattacks there towards the end of the second half, but then ultimately Joe Reed again made his presence known, and a good piece of skill, 1-against-1, beat the center back, and then against the goalkeeper slotted it home. So it was a good finish and put the game away then. Yeah,
probably the last 5 minutes or 7 minutes or so of the game, and it really took the wind out of the sails for Roosevelt at that point. So, credit to both teams for a hard-fought match, and I think probably a fair result on their second, kind of as the rematch game, second game they played this year together. But that Roosevelt team was pretty good, and I think we should just give them a little shout out for their undefeated conference season and win the conference title. I think first-year head coach Matt Ream will be proud of his boys.
Yeah, you would hope so. Obviously, it's disappointing. They're all disappointed as the season ends, especially when they probably thought they could have turned the table on the scoreline. But no, it was actually a good competitive game that we finally got to watch for a while. Since it's been a while.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one other thing as we transition our conversation, I guess Dowling will move on. They will play Johnston this evening on Wednesday at Johnston. Dowling moves to 12-6 on the year, and the Roughriders drop to 9-5. I guess interestingly, going to Johnston, when we talked to head coach of the Johnston Dragons, Jimmy Frizzell, his comment was that at this point in the season, their goal was to be playing home games. So that's what they're able to do. Now you've got Dowling going on the road to a bigger turf field and maybe a little bit less of a comforting atmosphere than the Dowling home ground.
Yeah, that's the Johnston Stadium is massive, and I think unfortunately you lose a little bit of atmosphere when it's that big of a surrounding. But Johnston with the big come from behind victory over Urbandale in their Substate semifinal.
Well, and that's the one of the interesting kind of plot lines as we move forward, and we'll just talk about that real quick. So Johnston beat Dowling a couple weeks ago.
Smashed them
6-2. Johnston also beat Urbandale like 9-1 in the Urbandale Merle Hay Cup that we went to, and we went to it as a game of the week, and we really had nothing to say about it afterwards because it was such a thrashing. And then they turned around, Urbandale did, and Substate pushed the Jayhawks to overtime, and pushed the Dragons to overtime. And Johnston eventually won out, but then you turn around and you've got, they've got a game quickly thereafter. And man, I don't know what's going through their minds at this point in the season, because you'd think they thought they were going to march right to state. What are your Drags thinking, Steves? I don't know.
One, it's difficult to beat a team twice in a year, right? But then, especially when you smash them 9-1, and it's the rivalry game though, Maroon Cup. So clearly they overlooked Urbandale, and Urbandale was obviously up for it and just couldn't close the game out. But being up 2-0 with 20 minutes to go or something like that. And then obviously Johnston pushes it to overtime, has all the momentum. I think the writing was on the wall there, unfortunately. But no, hopefully they don't. Hopefully Frizzell gets the boys, gets in them a little bit to realize that, hey, we smashed Dowling, but guess what? So it may be a blessing in disguise for the Dragons that they were able to squeak one out against Urbandale and wake them up a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be excited to see that game, or at least hear about it. What game are you going to tonight, Blake?
So we are going to watch to see if Valley, talking about beating two teams, or the same team twice in a season, Valley host Ankeny. And Varnum had his boys beat the Tigers earlier in the season, and trying to do it again with a trip to state on the line.
Yeah, I'm, of course, as a Valley Tiger, this will be my first chance to see them play live this year. Our player spotlight, Jaron Obia, will be on display. He just recently had a little spot in the news, and he just keeps scoring goals. I don't even know what he's at, but he's probably closing in on 40 for the season, which is insane to think about. So I expect he'll be firing all cylinders tonight.
Yeah, we talked to Aziz to plug our last podcast. He said he is super impressed, super happy with the group of players they've got. Which you hear coaches a lot of time talk about how happy they are, but he was over the moon, just how well they've done. They've listened. They're doing the things that the coaching staff wants them to do. He's super proud of them. So Aziz was even more positive than normal. So I'm interested to kind of see what shakes out.
I wonder what he would have said about us, like not us, but my group back in the day. I feel like he probably would have said not those things. So that must bode well for this group. And then I guess our third Central Iowa Substate, the Waukee Substate, has shaken out as you might expect. Got Ankeny Centennial taking on Waukee in the final. Centennial beat Southeast Polk 5-0 in their Substate semifinal, and Waukee beat Des Moines Hoover 4-0 in their Substate semifinal. So I think all of the matches that are featuring Substate semifinals here in Central Iowa are ones we may have predicted. But I think at this point now, I honestly couldn't tell you who's going through, other than, sorry, Drax, I assume Waukee is going to beat you, but I would love to, as we've talked about, we always love to see a top seed get knocked off. So there's always that.
Yeah, they have a chance, and tactically, I'm sure Centennial has a plan, and I would assume is to bunker and try to get one off the counter, but you never know. So we'll see.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on here. We're planning to, as Blake said, get out to Valley this evening, and then we're going to kind of recap that game and talk about what has shaken out for the state tournament. In the meantime, we're planning to be out at county. So if you're feeling like hanging out during the state tournament, come down. We'll be sitting under the tent, have the podcast stuff set up, and what else, Steves?
I think that's it. Hopefully make our presence known.
That's right. Follow us on social media. Twitter is @KIF_soccer, and then Facebook and Instagram are @KIFsoccer. Our website is at www.kifsoccer.com. Like the pod, rate the pod, subscribe to the pod. YouTube, subscribe to us there. Just do all the things, please. Support us, because that's how it works, I guess.
Love it.
All right, thanks. We'll see you guys next time. How many minutes was that?